super happy. So she's already helped me. And we can see like the mass is connecting. Vanessa, I'm going to hand it over to you to take it away.
Awesome. Okay, thank you very much. So guys, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I believe it's all the community groups from Cape Town, Joburg and Pretoria. I thought I was just presenting to the Centurion Massive today, but it's good to have everybody here. Guys, very informal discussion. I'd love it if you keep your videos on. I like to see people's reactions when I'm talking to them. If you're comfortable with that and you've got the data, that will be wonderful. Okay, yeah, well, that's a bit close and a bit freaky, just for, you know, maybe there might be young children on the chat. Guys, you're also welcome to unmute yourselves. Let's have this as a discussion. You know, let's learn from each other. I'm not the IT professional. I'm not the coder, but I do know a lot about your industry from potentially the other side of the fence. So without any further ado, I'm actually going to share my slide with you. There we go. Joan, if you can just keep an eye on the chat for me, if there's any questions that come through. Yes, I am female and I do know how to multitask, but that might just be a bridge too far today as I'm presenting to you guys. So I'm going to start because I think most people are going to be kind of logging in, or the people who said they were going to be here or here, and let's respect their timing. So what I'm talking about is, what are you doing to ensure that you stand out in the South African IT industry? And Joan, awesome. Thanks for that feedback that I've helped you to land a better job. Unfortunately, these days, it's not just good enough to be a good coder. A lot of people are concerned about the culture fit side of recruitment, and we've got to make sure that we're getting a good match on both sides. I think it was easier to land jobs previously, but now from a client's perspective and from a candidate's perspective, it's actually becoming a lot more difficult. So let me introduce myself so that I can explain a little bit about the angle that I'm taking. So some of you may know me as Squirrel. That is fast becoming a nickname that I've had for years. So if you hear Squirrel, it's often myself. But in a nutshell, my name is Vanessa Raath, and I do a lot of this presenting at community groups. I also work with a lot of NGOs like Girl Code, SharePoint Saturdays, SQL Saturdays. I probably spent more time at Microsoft on a weekend than any other recruiter has. But I basically love giving back to the communities, because I think a lot of people do struggle with the interview process. They struggle with putting a CV together, about where to find the jobs, those kind of things. And I think that, you know, if I can represent the South African recruitment industry, which I realize doesn't always have the best name, and try and change the perspective, the perception of the industry out there. I'm also passionate about personal and career branding, and this is of utmost importance to you if you are about to join the job market or you're thinking about it. And it's something that you should continuously be maintaining. It's almost like a work in progress. I'll be honest with you, I don't have a CV. I haven't had a CV for the last probably 15 odd years now. My CV is my online presence. I haven't needed one. And that's kind of where you need to be looking at, aiming to get from your perspective too. So I don't know if any of you know a company called Carabiner, Microsoft specialists. I was their internal recruiter for 9 years. I left them last year and I launched my own business on the 1st of April last year, because, you know, who doesn't start their own business on April Fool's Day? But I had a great time working with them. Good company. Unfortunately, they sold to Ultron. I'm just not corporate material, and it was time to go and do my own thing anyway. So what I do is I work as a professional freelance sourcer, which basically means is that I move talent around the world. So before lockdown happened, I was working with a company based in Australia and a company based in the Netherlands, and I was moving Java developers from Africa to the Netherlands, and I was looking for Kotlin and Go developers for Australia and looking throughout Africa. But I'm also happy I do sourcing in the States and Canada, wherever it may be. So I'm hired for a project work. I fit into the gig economy, and I'm pretty much hired as a specialist. So I have great fun. It really is fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. The other part of what I do is I train recruiters to do better jobs, because I hear from you guys that how awful recruiters are and how they don't understand your industry and how they treat you badly. And we've even got a phrase going now called ghosting. And I try and just raise the profile of recruitment in South Africa. And I also try and train recruiters on how LinkedIn is not the be all and end all in life, and how professionals like yourselves are not on job boards. So they really need to start diversifying where they are looking for top talent. And that kind of feeds into what I'm telling you guys so that you can make sure that you are in the right places for people to find you. I also do a lot of presenting. I actually should have been in Estonia this week presenting at a sourcing conference, and I should have been in Portugal last month. So COVID-19 has kind of messed with a lot of my travel plans and a lot of my international presenting plans, but I'm getting very used to presenting via Zoom, I must say. So guys, as I said, let's keep this very informal. Drop anything you want to say in the chat or just unmute yourself, ask a question. It really is a small enough group for us to do that. And keep your videos on because I really enjoy seeing your faces. I'll never forget when I presented at DevConf this year. It was so disconcerting because it really was just silence. I couldn't see anyone in the audience. And next thing they said, open up the questions. And all of a sudden it was like a gambling machine, like with that wheel just turning, the questions came flying in. So I thought, well, at least a couple of people attended my presentation, which I was pleased to hear. So let's not try and keep a question until the end, because if you're anything like me, you're going to forget by the time we get to the end, and then it's going to be supper time. I live with two other boys here, my husband and my son, and they insist on eating 3 times a day. So I know what it's like to have to go and get supper sorted. So what we're going to be discussing today, let's break it down. We need to have a look at why you need to have an awesome online presence and brand these days. It's not good enough just to have a really good standout CV. It's part of the process. It's part of what you need. But companies are looking for thought leaders. They're looking for people who have an opinion, who are sharing those opinions online. It's all about collaboration. It's all about standing out by being a thought leader in your chosen space. So whatever that may be, it's about being the person who is presenting at the conference on those topics. That is what they're looking for. They're looking for people who are going to join a company and come with almost a small little army of followers or a network of people who want to work with someone who is really good and well respected in the IT space. So I know it doesn't always go hand in hand with your typical IT kind of profile. I've interviewed people where they have been so nervous that I only got 1-word answers. Besides the fact that they've come, to an interview in what could resemble their pajamas. It's not like IT developers I know to have big personalities and extroverts. I'm not talking for everyone. That is a generalization, but I would like to encourage you to put yourself more out there. Also, how you're going to stand out from the rest of the pack, and I say specifically on LinkedIn, and the reason why I say that is LinkedIn is full of recruiters, not just local recruiters, international recruiters looking for good IT talent. So I don't know, I know people on this call, I recognize a couple of names. I know that I've spoken with you previously, and I know that you're working for international clients. So kind of what is seen or viewed as living the dream in South Africa is you sitting in South Africa, you live in a gorgeous country, you have all of the perks of living in South Africa, and there are several. You're earning a foreign currency because anything is better than the South African rand, and you're sitting at home and you can be coding in your underpants, okay? So that's what I'm talking about, is how you're going to stand out on a platform that is incredibly international. And I'm not just talking about changing roles in the South African context. Then we're going to look and see, does your CV stand out? Because at some point, I'm sure you are going to be needing a CV. You will be noticed by your online presence, but that will be backed up by your CV. And then finally, we're going to be looking at your most in-demand IT skills of 2020, according to what HackerRank has to say. So without any further ado, let's get going. As I say, interrupt me if you guys have any questions. Guys and girls, I was very happy to see some girls on this call. So let's start with your brand and your brand identity. So I love this lady, Dory Clark. She puts up a lot of good information around your brand identity. And what she says is that your personal brand is what other people say about you when you leave the room. It's your professional reputation. And more, this is becoming a thing. People know you because of the brand and, should I say, the noise that you are creating around yourself. How free you are with your knowledge sharing, your collaboration, etc., etc. And what's happening, though, is that you need to work extra hard to stand out, because the big personalities in the IT industry are doing this fantastically, but you need to kind of push to make sure that you're also noticed. So as I say, this is where you're going to get noticed to begin with, is your online presence. So let's talk about it. Where are you online? Because I get asked this question a lot. Another part of what I do is I do career brand counseling, a lot for people who are looking to get international work. And we look at their online brands and how they can improve them and uplift them. So what I want to know from you is, where are you online and how do you behave? And I'm sure that I'm speaking to the converted here when I tell you that whatever you put on the internet cannot be erased. Okay? So whatever you've posted, you know, people can find it. Even us recruiters who aren't tech specialists, there's a very common tool. It's called the Wayback Machine. And you can go and look at any website from whenever it was first published, or any Facebook post. So deleting your Facebook profile is not good enough these days. So what I want to do is I want to encourage you to, before you post anything online and how you behave online, is to ask yourself these two questions. And that is there anything on your social media platforms that you would not put on a billboard? So imagine the traffic that we used to have when people used to have to commute into the middle of Joburg on the M1. If you were going to put this in a tweet, or you were going to put in a LinkedIn post or a Facebook post, is there something that you would put there? It's a very good rule of thumb. And also, do you think that you've put anything previously, and I'm talking about since you joined any social platforms, that people could hold that against you? And it's definitely worth going to check. The second thing you need to think is that, do you have anything on your social media platforms that your mother does not know about? Because that's where we need to have the litmus test measure of what we think we should be posting. And we know what to stay away from. It's what we learned growing up. It's what we don't talk about around the boardroom table. Politics, religion. Okay, it's all of those topics. So we need to make sure that people aren't posting these views. And the reason is that people don't want extremists on their teams. They want someone who's going to fit in well with the team, match the company culture, or add value to the company culture. And that's why I look at diversity recruitment. You don't want someone who's going to come in and rock the boat. You've all been there. You're working in a team, everything's going swimmingly, everything's great. One arsehole joins and the whole thing falls to pot. And that's what people are looking at, excuse my French, on the social platforms. Who's got really extreme views that potentially could rock a very stable boat? So these are things which I want you to do. You almost need to kind of go and do a social media audit on what's out there about you. I mean, go do things like go and Google your name. What comes up? And please don't only stop at the web results, have a look at the images. What photos are there of you out there? Because these are things that are all really, really important that you don't think that recruiters will do, or even hiring managers. It's not even the recruiters that one needs to be nervous of. It's around the hiring manager as to, you know, they've got a CV that's landed on their inbox. Before you walk through the door, are they going to go and check you out? I just see some things coming in the chat. You're okay, cool, perfect, no questions. Okay, so let's continue. So now we've got to look at, you know, obviously we know the right behavior online. I mean, I could talk to you about that for an hour, but I shouldn't have to. I'm sure your parents have done a good job of raising you all. You all look pretty decent. Well, except for Earvolt, you know, so, but everyone else looks pretty decent. What are you doing to stand out online? I want to know, what are you doing to stand out online? Because this is how you're going to get people's attention. It really and truly is. It's not your CV that you're applying for a job. People are going to notice you first, and they're going to say, I want that person on my team. He is standing out. She is a thought leader. Those are the kind of influencers that I want to join my company, because you don't just want to take someone who's in the B team who can just do the job. You want someone who's phenomenal, because that's going to add incredible value to your organization. So you've got to think about your online presence. You know, first of all, where are you? And when I talk about this, I talk about the big four, and I'm not referring to the banks, but there are four major social platforms that I believe that everyone should have a presence on. And that is your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Twitter, and your Instagram, because they are the four most popular platforms in this country and from a global perspective. Now, you are all in the IT space, so there are obviously others which I'm going to be covering, but those are where you need to be. But you also think, like, what is your strategy? You know, it's great being on LinkedIn, but the last stats around LinkedIn were that there were 310 million people on there. Facebook has 2.4 billion. So why wouldn't you go, or why wouldn't you have a presence where there are more people and where you potentially are going to be standing out amongst more people. So a lot of people view Facebook as their, well, this is my friends and family and my varsity friends, but it's actually changing into a professional network. And it's kind of not something that I'm changing. It's the way that people are using information. There are great groups on there. You can learn a lot. And I really feel that Facebook, we need to start taking it a little bit more seriously, because people are going to check you out on Facebook. And the number one reason why people are going to check you out on Facebook is they're often looking for mutual friends. And guys, we've got to get over ourselves. There's nothing wrong. I promise you, as soon as I get off this call, I'm going to go and pour a glass of wine. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I just didn't get to it before this call, else I would have been having one as we go along here. I just decided to put vodka in my water bottle instead. No, I'm kidding. I didn't. But what I'm saying is that if you are sitting back and kicking back with your workmates on a Friday afternoon and you're having a beer or you're having a glass of wine or a gin and tonic, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not the person who goes to work from 8 until 5 and then you leave. People need to understand that there's a lot more to the person that goes to work and back every day. So what I'm saying is, don't worry about the fact that you're having a drink. Sure, if you passed out in the gutter and you're in your 40s, it's still a little bit embarrassing. But you know what I'm saying is that show the real person that you are. Let your hobbies come out. I mean, the company where I worked at Carabiner, the directors were all mental. They were all Ironmen. They did the epic mountain bike race. So if I could find someone who had run Comrades or had also done an Ironman, I knew already that he was in, because he was straight into the boys' club of this extreme sport. And that's what people are looking for something that's similar on your profile. So your hobbies could actually be ticking a very big culture fit box. Even gaming is a hobby. You know, it's all of these things which we think is not important, but really people are looking to hire a candidate that they know holistically, as opposed to just a person who comes to work from 8 till 5. So you've got to think about what is your strategy around this. Every time you post, you also need to be using a strong visual. So posts with a visual actually perform way higher than posts without visual content. So just take something off a Google image or a stock photo site or whatever it may be. And also, are you posting regularly? You're not going to stand out if you do one post a month. Sorry, I know it's difficult, but you've got to try and get your posting up to at least 3 times a week, especially on a platform like a LinkedIn. And then you can link your LinkedIn feed to your Twitter feed. Okay. John, are you clapping? I mean, Joan, are you clapping because you're happy there, or have you got to, you raising your hand?
I'm trying to raise my hand, but it's so different from Teams.
Sorry, Teams.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we use
for
Teams for work. But you kind of answered it. The next sentence was like, how often should you post?
Often should you be posting? Okay. So
like,
I always say,
I think that's,
go for it.
Yeah. And like, because like, if you think of it, like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, even Instagram, just with 4 places, and you're doing a proper post, like a pretty good post, like it's going to take you about half an hour proper post. And you don't necessarily want to do the same type of post on each type of content. Like you want to, sometimes you want to separate it, and like Facebook is, okay, that might be my private life. It takes 10 minutes to post drinking with buds and friends and stuff like that. But LinkedIn, you might want to have a very different format that shows it.
Absolutely. So how I would group it together is link your LinkedIn and Twitter. So whatever you're posting on LinkedIn, send straight to Twitter. Remember, we're doing this because we're just looking to stand out. I don't want this to become all consuming. I know you guys have got jobs to do. And then your Facebook and your Instagram, I don't really tend to post too much work stuff on those, but it does come in. So I'll probably take a screenshot at some time during this presentation and do a post about it. But you don't put the same content. As you say, you've got to talk to your different audiences on the platform. I'm more concerned about your Facebook and Instagram bio saying that you are what you do. So you're a data scientist, you're a software engineer, whatever it may be. Your posts on Facebook and Instagram, don't really worry about making them too work focused. Just make sure that you're not posting like loads of party pictures or extreme views or things like that. So that's how I would separate the two. LinkedIn, and then LinkedIn feeds your Twitter account 3 times a week on LinkedIn. Best days to post on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And the algorithm says that don't post twice within a 24-hour period on LinkedIn, because else you mess with the algorithm. And try and get your posts out by 8:30 at the latest in the morning, so people have the whole day to interact with your post. Don't post on LinkedIn over a weekend. No one's on LinkedIn over the weekend except for me. Unashamedly will admit that.
So just saying small to add to that, I mean, we say like get images off like Google and stuff. Something to just be concerned with is the usage rights of those images, because when you're starting out, you can go use whatever you want, and then after a while, you find you get a lot of interesting emails from lawyery people that go back in your history.
How interesting, Gordon. Thanks for sharing. So yeah, use your stock photos. So there's Pixel, that's good. Stock photos, there's a couple that I use. Just don't try and use the same ones that everyone else is using, because you can see he's just attacking the stock sites. Same in presentations. You notice it. So guys, that's what I just want to see. You know, if you're posting often, you're standing out. And, you know, also it comes with posting is commenting on other people's posts, you know, interacting with them, staying top of mind. If you went for an interview at a company and you know, you weren't maybe successful for the role, but you really like the company, keep in touch with the hiring manager. Every time you post, go and comment. What are you doing? You're staying top of mind. Okay.
Thanks for
Go,
that.
Carol.
I've got a question.
Yes, shoot.
Just as far as the type of content or sources of content, how is it viewed? I see, you know, a lot of people reference content that's already out there versus you compiling content fresh, you know, from scratch.
So,
what's the view on that?
So my view is use a combination. I mean, you don't really want to be on LinkedIn just because you are posting someone else's content all the time. What performs best on LinkedIn is your original content, and it's something that has happened personally to you. So I find that if I share a story about, you know, something that happened during the day, or an interesting person that I interviewed, or a client's new way of doing something, that content actually performs way better than if I find an article that I found interesting and I share it. But I understand 3 times a week is quite hectic. You're not always going to have your own original stories. I get that, because I have exactly the same situation. So what I do personally is I go and I sign up to a lot of, tech sites that post interesting articles internationally. I sign up for their newsletter, and then that comes through. And then whenever I want to go and post something, I just tap into my Gmail, because that's where I get everything sent. And I say, okay, someone's going to have sent me an email. It's going to link to 5 articles. What do I find the most interesting? That's what I'm going to share. So for me, it's having that reserve. So I think the hardest thing is thinking, oh shit, I need to post on LinkedIn. What am I going to post? But if you have got a whole list on your Gmail, then it makes life easier. And also, if you share an article, the main thing about that is how you curate it. And that is what you put there. I mean, it's no use just sharing an article. Like, tell people, why did you share this article? Why did it resonate with you? Why do you think it's going to resonate with your audience? You're enjoying point number 4 the best because why? Too many people just like slap on an article and think, I'm done. That crazy woman on that webinar that I watched during lockdown told me I must post 3 times a week. So there you go. You've got to add value. So you've got to think about, like, what do you want to stand out for? So I'll be honest with you. I don't do a lot of recruitment in South Africa anymore. I do much more global stuff. My target audience on LinkedIn are recruiters, because I want recruiters to pay me to train their teams on how to source candidates better. So my messaging is very focused to them. I want to stand out as the go-to person in recruitment in South Africa. If you choose that you want to stand out as the go-to developer, or even C# developer or Java developer, post in line with that. That is your strategy. So you can almost manipulate the conversation by what you're putting out there and by who you add to your network. And talking about adding to your network, a lot of people don't realize this. You can have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. I have been pumping my LinkedIn for 10 years and I'm only sitting on, I think, just about 15,000. So I will add anyone. LinkedIn says only add people you know. Well, that's crap. The more people you add, the bigger your network, the more traction you're going to get on your posts. So if you post and you want to get a bigger reach, because let's face it, we're posting on LinkedIn because we want to make ourselves stand out. We're not doing it for our health. If you want a bigger return on your post, have a bigger network. Okay. And also, are you telling a story that people can learn from? Thanks, Carol. So what can people learn from your experience? I'll often share that, you know, I shared earlier on in lockdown that I was finding it incredibly difficult to do business development, because I do business development by meeting people, shaking hands, showing people some cool tricks about what I can train them. And that's becoming more difficult now because I can't go and see people. So that got a lot of traction, that post, because I said, you know, I need some ideas. Can you assist me? Another time, and then a week later on that post, I did a new post saying, okay, I've changed my tactic. And what I started doing during lockdown from a business development perspective is I made short videos. I personalized them for all of my clients. And I sent them a videos, and they could just click on a link, go to the video, and suddenly my business started taking off again. So I shared that on LinkedIn, and I said, you know, last week I was battling. Well, this week things are looking up because, and that's what people are looking for. People who have that sharing, collaborative kind of mindset. Just some other points around that, things that we should be doing online is, do we create and curate engaging content with a call to action? So how LinkedIn works is that it actually puts a lot of emphasis on comments. So you are fishing for comments on your LinkedIn post. Sure, the reactions are cool. I mean, you can even love something now on LinkedIn. It's got really cool, like Facebook. But you're looking for comments, because comments actually carry the most weight and they push the post more. So you don't want to post something and then there's no interaction. So you've got to actually go and monitor your post. What have you posted? What performs the best? But you'll see on my posts, and you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm not going to stalk you and send you job specs and crap like that. Okay, that's what I'm trying to move away from. But someone will comment on my post, and I will go straight away and I'll go and comment, because even my comment carries weight. So if someone comments on your post, go and comment back, tag them in the comment. Now, what a lot of people also don't realize is that LinkedIn isn't like Facebook. Facebook, you can only tag people who are your friend. LinkedIn, you can tag anyone. So if you're sharing an article that was written by someone sitting in Singapore, tag them. Say, thank you so much for this article at John Smith for writing it. Because what's invariably going to happen is that John Smith's going to invite you to his network, which opens up his connections to you. And also his colleagues and peers could see that you share contact and add to your network. Because remember, the aim here is we're looking to get global. We're trying to stand out from a global perspective, and that's a very good way to do that. So your call to action could be a question. What are your thoughts on this? How would you have handled the situation differently? Okay, so always have a call to action on your post, because you want to invite people to engage with you. Also, groups are making a bit of a resurgence on LinkedIn. They went through a bit of a dull patch and there wasn't too much emphasis put on them, but they're really trying to push them again. Go and find some cool groups. The nice thing about groups, again, is they're all international, unless you're joining the South African IT professionals group, of course. But if you go and join the group for Kotlin professionals, there are so many great, interesting articles from people all over the world. And remember, your learning's up to you. And also, no one likes a negative Nelly. So please don't post anything that you is negative. No one likes anyone who blames the country or the government. We all can think it, but we don't want to be posting it. No one wants to know if you've got PMS, and that's pretty much for you guys. We don't need to know stuff like that. So just keep it tidy, you know, keep it above board. If you're having a bad day, rather just don't go and post something for that day. And then, do you use your social media to set up introductions before you attend events and conferences? So I don't know how many of you had much time before this. I didn't notice any new connections really coming through. I don't think today around, you know, what was going on. But if you are going to a conference, and I know that a lot of them are digital, but even if there's a speaker that stands out to you, if you were to send that person a connection request and say, I'm looking forward to this upcoming conference, could be DevConf, looking forward to your presentation, they will connect with you. And what you're doing is, if you're connecting with someone who's sitting at like a higher social authority than you are, it puts you in a better light. So people like to see those mutual connections. So then if you're trying to expand your network, they can say, oh my gosh, he's connected with this guy that I saw present at this conference. He can't be all bad. And that's the way the human mind works. So you need to start doing things like that, but always to remain personable. So if you're connecting with someone on LinkedIn, always just add their notes. Tell them, why do you want to connect with them? And no, you don't have to connect with every single recruiter who sends you a connection to request with them, to connect with you. You don't have to. Make sure that they're sending you a note. Make sure that they're standing out. Make sure they haven't sent you some spam with a template. But it could be a recruiter sitting in somewhere which you thought, oh, might be quite nice to go and work here for a year or two. So just bear that in mind. I know recruiters do behave badly, but you don't have to feel the pressure. Does someone want to ask a question there? I saw a hand go up. No. Okay, cool. I'll continue. Also, we've got to start with the mentality of always be learning. So ABL. So you've got to set yourself professional goals and to reach them. So we've got lovely sites now like Your Acclaim where you can share your latest certifications, and anything that you do, you need to be sharing in the online space. Even if it's a Udemy course that you've done, add it onto your LinkedIn profiles, because too many people think that these do not carry any weight or they're not important. But a lot of hiring managers out there want to see updated certifications, because then they know that they don't have to wait for you to get the certification and they don't have to pay for you to get the certification. You've got it already. Okay. So start adding anything that you're doing and keep learning. I'm such a firm believer in this. You know, if on your LinkedIn profile or on your CV, it doesn't show that you've done anything since you've finished your degree in the 90s, it's not going to put you in a very good light, especially in the tech industry where things change so rapidly that you have to keep up. So just bear that in mind. And also, if you think you're sitting here and you're thinking, oh, I'd love to work for that company, or they're doing a really cool project at the moment, you can circumvent recruiters. You don't potentially need recruiters. And I probably shouldn't be saying this too loudly, but you don't. Connect with the hiring manager who is in that department on LinkedIn. Then he's going to start seeing your post. You're going to start standing out, and he's going to say, I want that guy on my team, because trust me, I have seen it happen. So don't be shy. Use it as a professional networking tool like it's supposed to be used for. I'm not saying you need to go and add all of these people on your Facebook, but you can follow them on Twitter. You can go and follow them on Instagram. So we've got to start using these platforms to our advantage. It's not just a playground to compare yourself to what your schoolmates are doing now and try and decide whether you're more successful or not than what they are. Use it to enhance your career, because the tools are there. We just don't always use them to the best of that ability. So remember that social media has always been seen as like a bad place. You know, like when it first started, I remember my mom saying to me, like, be careful, you don't know who you're talking to. It could be like one of your schoolmates, but is it really your schoolmate? Is it not like an old man in his 60s sitting in his underpants at home, you know? And that was the way that the internet was kind of sold. It was a scary place. And it still is a scary place. I honestly believe that. I think that you need to be very careful. I literally get the heebie-jeebies when I see 10-year-olds with Instagram accounts, you know, those kind of things. It really is not great. But if it's going to be there, and it's become such a big part of our life, I was reading some stats around how lockdown has changed the way that we're consuming social media. South Africa has actually moved into 4th position by the most frequent users of social media in the world. Because I think a lot of people have been sitting at home and they've been working. Meanwhile, they're spending a lot of time on social media. So the South African social media usage has literally gone through the roof. So what I want to say is that you've got to use it to your advantage. Get on the bandwagon. Everybody else is. But this is something that I want to share with you, and this is how not to behave on LinkedIn, okay? So I actually came across this when I was training a group of recruiters, and we had such a good laugh. So this was a guy, I'm not going to share his name with you, senior developer, as we know at Raath. And look at the message that he put to recruiters. To all recruiters, leave me alone. I just started a new job, and no, I don't know anyone else who is interested. And I was quite flabbergasted at this, because I thought, yeah, I get where you're coming from. And I also hate it when recruiters send you a message and they tell you how wonderful you are and you've got such great experience and qualifications, but then they sign off the message by saying, oh, by the way, if you're not interested, please send me your colleague's name and phone number, because I'm going to go and harass them next. That is wrong. I get it. Okay. But I think that putting something like this on your LinkedIn is maybe a step too far, because you just don't know when you might need the recruiter. especially when you hear what's happening at Bright House and our data and the restructuring. This guy might be in dire need of a recruiter in the next couple of months. So just be careful what you put out there. Just, I'm going to leave that point there. And I know that recruiters don't always do them any favors. So let's just focus on your LinkedIn. I want to give you a couple of pointers. Actually, LinkedIn changed its headline characters over the weekend. I think you were restricted to about a 120. It's now gone to 200. So just remember that your headline, you can add extra words to that on LinkedIn now. Please use a clear head and shoulders professional photograph of yourself. People form a connection with another individual. So you're going to stand out better if you have a really good head and shoulders shot. Try and use the same one across all of your platforms. So you're easily recognizable as the same person on Facebook, you know, Twitter, Instagram, all of those kind of things. And rather write a headline, not your job title. So a lot of people will just put on that headline section and they just say, you know, Java developer. So sure, you're a Java developer. That's what you do from 9 to 5. But I'm sure that there's a lot more about you. You know, are you a mountain biking enthusiast? Are you a keen gardener? Are you a red wine lover? Remember, we want to see the holistic person. We don't just want you to put on there from a work perspective of what you do. I mean, you could also be, you could be a Java developer, but you're actually passionate about Kotlin, okay? You could also run a community user group. You could also be a proud member of a certain user group, wherever it may be. People like to see things like that because hopefully no one's held a gun to your head and said you will be on this call tonight. They want to see people who go and want to further themselves and be better and, you know, who are passionate about their work. I see someone who may have been forced to be on this call, and I do apologize, but hopefully it's adding value. And then you've got that about section on LinkedIn, okay? What a lot of people don't realize is it's actually got a new section that's called featured. And on there, you can actually post photos of your success stories. Like, I mean, if your graduation wasn't too long ago, you could put that on there. Something big, you won an award at work, something that you're really proud of. Because when you look at a phone and you look at someone's profile on a phone on the LinkedIn app, that featured section is very prominent. You can put links to articles that you've written, to websites that you've built, whatever it may be. I think you get up to 5 kind of posts or different things that you can feature. Please make sure that it's filled in. It really makes a big difference. Something that we're not good at as South Africans is we're not very good at asking for recommendations. We sometimes feel a little bit shy, okay? So everyone that I train, I ask for a recommendation. I don't know how many I've got. I think I just went over the 200 mark. Hopefully that stands me in good stead when I send a reach out message to someone on LinkedIn, or I'm putting an or in on a heated debate on LinkedIn. If people check out my profile, hopefully 200 recommendations means that I kind of know what I'm talking about. But you're not going to get recommendations out of people's goodwill, you know, their love, their free will. You have to ask for them. So I would suggest that you go back in your last couple of years of work, anyone who you've worked with, any previous bosses, etc., ask them for a recommendation, because these pretty much stand out as much as like that old reference that you used to attach to your CV. You remember those things? Or am I too old? Oh, some people nodding their heads. Good. You're still awake as well. That's great. But a recommendation carries as much weight as an old reference or a testimonial from an organization. So make sure that they are there for people to see. Also give recommendations. I mean, if you've worked with someone, please don't give them a recommendation because you feel like you are, they've given you one, so you must give them one. It's your professional reputation on the line too. Please don't give a good recommendation for a developer who's really crap, and then someone hires them and they say, what was this guy talking about? I really think that this guy knows what he's talking about in the industry. How could he give a good recommendation? Okay, so just some things to remember.
So, sorry, question on that.
Yeah, go, Gordon.
What's your thoughts on whether you reach out to the person first before, like in the platform saying, hey, ask this person for recommendation? So, that's normally the bit where I've struggled. Like, do I first ask someone on the side and then ask the platform, or is it too invasive to ask the platform, hey, ask this person for a recommendation?
So Gordon, good question. And it's completely up to you and how well you know the person. when you actually go to your LinkedIn profile and you go to the recommendation section and you say request a recommendation, it actually gives you a section there where you can personalize the recommendation request. And I always do that. So I will say to the person, look, I'm just trying to grow my online presence. I really enjoyed working with you. You're a fantastic boss. Would you mind taking the time to give me a recommendation? So you can personalize it at that point. But I mean, if it's a mate of yours, you can just send them a WhatsApp and say, hey, I'm just doing some work on my LinkedIn profile. I'm going to send you a recommendation request. And then you can still go and personalize your request. Okay. So it's completely up to you. I mean, it all depends on your relationship with whoever it is. Also, guys, show outside of work leadership experience and interests. So those of you who are running this community forum, you know, put that on there. People like to see people who go the extra mile because, again, remember, it shows your passion. And interests. I mean, everyone has a hobby. Everyone does something. And even if it's gaming, even if you build websites in your spare time, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then remember that you've got to read, comment, and get back to people. So don't just be like a one-hit wonder, post something on LinkedIn on Monday morning, get wound up in a whole lot of coding or something during the week. And then it gets to Friday afternoon. And then you suddenly think, oh, I posted something on LinkedIn on Monday. Let me go and check it. So if you're going to kind of step into this, you know, this like more public realm, make sure that you stick with it. You know, people comment, get back to them. You might find people start sending you a message and saying, oh, by the way, I'd like to post. I just need a little bit of help with this. So kind of just don't post and forget about it. Okay. This is a good rule of thumb. So if we're going to now look at, you know, your CV and how you're going to stand out. So you're first going to be noticed by what you're doing online. Okay. But then invariably, and especially in South Africa, even though it drives me nuts, they're going to ask you for a CV. Okay. So you may as well have a good CV that is ready. A great tool for you to use to put a good CV together is a tool called Canva, canva.com. Okay. Canva.com. All you do is it's a free tool. Don't pay for it. You don't have to pay for it. Remember, we're South African. We don't like paying for anything because it's normally in US dollars. You go to the search bar, you type CV or you type resume. And what it does is it actually gives you a template that you can just go in and edit. Very, very good CV. Okay. And remember to tailor your CV for every position that you are applying for. Now, recruiters have feelings too. Okay. So when we get an email addressed to Dear Sandra at Vanessa, I get a little bit upset. Okay. I also do have a few feelings. So just make sure that you're not spamming out your CV by just forwarding it on to the last couple of people that you applied for. Please, for the love of God, you don't need a cover letter either. Okay. No one has a cover letter anymore. Your cover letter can be your about section on LinkedIn. So that is anything that is not in your CV, not work related, kind of what you do, any side hustles, those kind of things. And remember to include all of your achievements. Again, South Africans are not always that good about bragging about what they've achieved, what they've done, but we need to remember that this goes a far way in the workplace. And also proofread your CV and then ask someone else to proofread it for you. Because I promise you, there's always going to be gremlins. There's always going to be mistakes. Rather make sure that it's grammatically correct, you know, good spelling. Don't just copy and paste your duties from one company to another because they're never exactly the same. Don't take them off the job spec. All of those kind of things, you know. When you've finished doing your duties for each section, you can actually have another subheading that says achievements. And there, recruiters want to see stuff like, you finished a project that was, there was no scope creep, and just pretend that this happens. You finished before the start date, you saved the company how much money, you know what I'm saying? So they want to see what did you achieve during this time, because that's important. So don't be too shy not to include that on your CV. And then basically use a cover letter in the body of your email. So remember, this is where you're going to get the person's name correct of where you're sending it to. It's always good to blow smoke in the company's direction. Say you want to work for a particular company, tell people why, you admire the company because of X, Y, and Z. And also just, you can take whatever you would have put it in a cover letter and send it in the body of the email. So I'm sure someone's going to ask, how long should your CV be? And my response to you is going to be, how long is a piece of string? Because it depends. Your CV is going to be varying lengths if you're a grad with 2 years experience than if you've been in the industry for 20 years. Just don't waffle, and make sure that it stands out, that you're using an up-to-date format. Even if you go to Word, for all of the Microsoft fans here, and you go to get a template and you type resume in there, I think resume gives you more results, but being the American side, then you get some nice templates to put a CV in. Okay. Don't just keep the same format because it's the one that you've had that your father gave to you when you were 18. Okay. Those are the pretty awful ones that don't really get anyone's attention. Should you put a photograph on it? It's completely up to you. If you are going to put a photograph on it, just make sure it's professional, and preferably not one that was taken at your wedding. Okay. Those are always the ones that are easy to spot. And then recruiters pass them around the office and laugh at you. So you don't really want that kind of thing happening. So just a couple more points on this. On your CV, start strong. Now, I've read so many articles about how much time recruiters spend reading your CV, and they vary from 10 seconds to a minute. But it's nothing more than that. They literally, what a lot of recruiters do is that they search for keywords. So they'll go Control F and try and find keywords in your CV. So you've got to make sure that if you want to get noticed from a CV perspective and any kind of a LinkedIn profile or Facebook profile, it's keyword heavy, because that's how recruiters look. They look for tech stacks. So if they, for example, are looking for a Java developer with Kotlin and Go experience, that's what they're going to put into what's called a Boolean search string. So you've got to make sure that you have stacked your profiles and your CV with these keywords, because recruiters generally, and 9 times out of 10, cannot tell you what Kotlin is. Do not know that Go is short for Golang, all of those things. But if they can see the keyword on your CV, they're like, awesome, I've got a match, I'm going with this one. Okay, so you've got to take note of your keywords and how you are using them. So start strong. Your first page has to be super, super well presented and interesting. Also, emphasize the importance of results rather than responsibilities in each role. Again, you don't want to be copying from the job spec, okay, of your duties. That's boring. You know, any changes that you made. So where did you make a difference? And obviously what people are looking for is where did you add to the bottom line? So those are the kind of things people are looking for, not just that you were responsible for the C# development company, for the C# development across the whole intranet in this year, whatever. Okay, what impact did you have on that? You know, just give us a little bit more. And then also show industry insights through your up-to-date studies and articles and blogs. So blogs and articles, they're nice to have. They're not essential anymore because I think that the internet is flooded with them. But if you enjoy writing and you have a creative side, by all means, go ahead and do it. But also on your online profiles, you know, again, up-to-date studies also on your CV, and have an opinion on something, you know, put something out there, stand out as someone who knows what they're talking about. Too many people are too afraid to do this because they're scared of the repercussions. But if you know your stuff, there shouldn't be too many repercussions. And be concise. Please, if your CV is over 10 pages, it's too long. I don't care if you are a 70-year-old Delphi developer, okay? 10 pages is too long. Okay, and then where else are you? Because I've spoken about sites that are very mainstream. But you guys are tech professionals. So are you on GitHub? Are you on Stack Overflow? Because to be honest with you, I don't actually see the value of doing a lot of sourcing on LinkedIn for top candidates. And this is from a global perspective, because I know that IT candidates don't really like LinkedIn. And I get it. I understand. You can't share your code. You can't post repositories. You can't mix with other developers. It's boring. So as sourcing and recruiting starts evolving, and it very much is a much bigger thing in the US and Europe than it is in South Africa, I'm trying to change that here. Top IT sources are going to look for you on a GitHub and a Stack Overflow. So are you on these sites? And there's several others, you know, are you on Kaggle? Your Acclaim is another one, you know, that's an easy way to be found. Even by being on Meetup, which I presume most of you are on here. I don't know if anyone's heard of a site called dev.to, dev.to. What about Reddit? You know, Reddit's also a good site. So you've got options now. everyone just presumes that IT professionals are on LinkedIn because it's the world's oldest social platform. And it is. I mean, it's been around since 2003 or something, but now people have options. So people are going where they feel the most comfortable. They're going where their people are and where the platform allows them to use it in line with their profession. UI, UX developers, they're on Behance. They can't post their portfolios on LinkedIn. So you've got to go where you feel comfortable. And that's where you need to start building your presence. Twitter is great for IT professionals too. So to finish off, the most in-demand skills from according to HackerRank. Now you guys can go and download this. This is just a presentation or a white paper from HackerRank. HackerRank are great. They're also a job board based out of the US, but they do fantastic surveys. For example, this one, 100,000 developers from all over the world actually responded to this survey. So I know that OfferZen tried to emulate this. They did something towards the end of last year, but I found that their results were actually very much in line with the Cape Town kind of IT scene. I didn't think that it showed a real true reflection of the South African IT industry, where HackerRank, I think, is a good they have a good understanding of the global market. So just some couple of pointers that I took from this report. As I say, you just got to go to their website. You can download this yourself. But some of the key findings that I thought were really interesting is that JavaScript is this year's most widely known language again, and it has been what it was last year. And there was only one change, and that was that PHP and C# changed positions. So from a career perspective for you guys in the tech space and ladies in the tech space is that these are kind of what you have to know, because these are the best known languages out there. So these are always going to be often a base requirement. So what we get as sources, we get told, okay, they must have a Java, and then the other ones are like a nice to have, or they must have C# and these. But there's always a base coding language. And this is what we see popping up often. Okay. So just make sure that if you've got a good understanding across all of these, you're going to have a very solid grounding. Okay, so Go is the #1 language developers wanted to learn, and that was for the 3rd year in a row. And I know why. I get approached by people all over the world looking for people who can code in Go. It is exceptionally popular. So if you're looking for a new coding language to look at, while we're in lockdown and of course no one's working, then what you can do, and I say that very tongue in cheek because I don't think I've ever worked as hard in my life, is that Go is a good language for you to start learning. And if you look at the others, Python, Kotlin, TypeScript, and R. So a combination of Java, Kotlin, and Go is what I'm seeing is really, really in demand. I also train recruitment teams all over the world. I'm training a company in Berlin at the moment and in London, and they are both of them are looking for Java, Kotlin, and Go. And it's exactly what I was looking for before lockdown. So you've kind of got to upskill yourself in the areas that are common. And it's a bit of a race because you want to get there before your competition does. Okay. Now, developers also are learning React, Angular, JS, and Django, and this is now the frameworks that we're looking at. What is interesting to see is that all 3 are in the top 5 frameworks that hiring managers are looking for. So if you're looking at upping frameworks or learning in this space, the top 5 are ones which I would be looking at, because you want to be training in something that's in demand. I actually got a phone call during lockdown by a company saying to me, I need Delphi developers. And I said, well, and they said to me, where am I going to go looking for these people? And I said, sure. Well, I would actually look at your closest old age homes, because that's where the Delphi developers are hanging out. I mean, it's such an old legacy software kind of thing. And if you can code in Delphi, that's great. You can probably get paid a lot of money. But as soon as there's no more Delphi, you're not going to have a job. So what I'm trying to say is just to stay up to date with what people are looking for throughout your career, and you're never going to be wanting for a job. Then I actually had to go and rework calculations on this yesterday, because the salary increases were based on languages. Okay, so what I want to say is that the average salary in the US from an annual perspective is $54,000 US dollars. Now that equates to 938 Rand per annum, which is a good salary in South Africa. That is good. But what I wanted to show you here is that these are the languages that earn the highest salaries. So if you're in this game because you want to be rich and drive a Ferrari, that's fine. But make sure that you're looking at the languages that demand the highest salaries. Personally, I've never had to look for anyone who could code and pull. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if any of you guys can do that, can code in that. But I've definitely heard of people looking for Scala. As I say, Go is coming up often. Ruby used to be quite big. I haven't heard it too much of people looking for it of late. And that's what you've got to be careful of, is that you don't want to become too specialized in this game, because then, as I say, tech changes so rapidly, you must be able to be agile. So if you can code in this language and you know it's easy to cross-skill into this language, rather just get it done. Okay. Right. And from a frameworks perspective, Backbone.js is associated with the highest salaries, Cocoa and Ruby on Rails. And as I say, I haven't ever been asked to look for people with the top 2 skills. So I think the rarer it is, the more difficult it is. People tend to stay away from the tech. Okay. But it's interesting to see those results. And I thought this was super interesting. Did you know that South African developers are the 7th highest paid in the world? I don't think that that was too bad for us as South Africans. So, I mean, you've got first, second, third there, USA, Australia, and Canada. Okay. The Netherlands actually has a more critical IT tech skill shortage than what we have at the moment. They are moving loads of developers to the Netherlands at the moment, which is sad from a South African perspective, but I understand. And there sits South Africa. And the approximate salary there, global average salary per annum, 790 to 100,000. So I don't know what you guys are getting paid. I don't need to know, but that's kind of the average of the people who took part in this survey. But again, if you can be looking at trying to get work in, say, USA is quite difficult. I think they have to jump through a lot more legal hoops to get people that are going to sit in South Africa and code for them. But Australia and Canada are definitely a lot more open to it. You could be earning their salaries, but staying in South Africa, which is an absolute win from a foreign exchange perspective. And that's why I enjoy training teams that are international as well as South African teams. And then I also thought what was interesting, what I would share with you, is that globally, 39% of developers feel they're paid unfairly compared to their peers. And this is a big issue in our industry. Obviously, no one should be talking about salaries. A lot of people put that in their, their rules of the company, but it happens. So just to let you know that you don't feel alone. So just before we finish, and this is my second to last slide, if you think that you're ready and you're looking for something else, or it's not even a case of that anymore, because post-pandemic, I think a lot of people are realizing is that permanent work may not be the way of the future. If you're looking to join the gig economy, I love working with lots of different clients. I love being called in as a specialist to do some consulting when people need me, because it means I don't end up doing the boring stuff, or in your guys' language, the support and maintenance, okay? So I'm always involved with some exciting projects. So if you are ready and you feel like it's time to take the leap of faith, I just want to ask you guys a couple of questions. And the first one is, do you fully understand your cost to company? And a lot of people don't, and you might think that this is a very weird question, but you need to take into account if your company's paying for your medical aid. What's it going to cost if you take it out in your personal capacity? Are there going to be more travel costs? You need to start weighing up all of these factors, because I think a lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction. They leave, and what they actually find out is that they've left, but they're actually taking home less than what they were earning at their previous company. So you need to have a good understanding of that. Also, is your internet footprint clean? So please Google yourself, check out what you say about yourself on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and blogging sites, because more than ever, companies are checking these out too. And you want to make sure that there's nothing there that they can point a finger at and say, we can't have him because of this, or we don't want him because of this. And also, what do you want? Do you want to be in a corporate environment, or do you want to be in a consulting environment? And this is what a lot of people don't realize. There's pros and cons to both. Your package is probably going to be bigger at corporate, but you're probably going to be working on older tech stacks and technologies. So do you want to be consulting where they're probably going to suck the lifeblood out of you and you're going to be working 14 hours a day? No, I'm kidding. It's not that bad. I'm a consultant. But you need to make sure that you understand the difference. And I would recommend that at some point in your career, you work in either setup. Okay, so you say, okay, this is what I'm going to try now, and leave the corporate until you are older and you actually want the big provident fund. Okay, would be my advice. And then who have you told that you're on the market? Most people actually find jobs by word of mouth these days. So who are you connecting with? People that you maybe have worked with previously, people that you've studied with, people that you met at a conference, people who work for a company that you want to work for. Word of mouth is actually a much more efficient way because recruiters aren't cheap. So if a company can get past having to pay a recruiter fee, especially from an agency perspective, I'm not talking from an internal recruitment perspective, it works out better for the company. So rather just connect with people that you trust and let them know. Cool. And guys, that is it from me. I hope that we're doing well from a timing perspective. Yep, all good, on time. I'm here to answer questions. There's all my contact details. As I say, connect with me on LinkedIn. There's my email address, my website, Twitter handle. You're not going to not find me online. And I'm sure that you'll understand why from my presentation. So if anyone has any questions or anything that you want to ask, go for it. If not, please go grab yourself a beer. I'm sure it's been a long day. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. That was very interesting.
Awesome. Thanks, Tiff. And I like your cat. It's gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm not a developer, but I enjoyed the presentation. It's very insightful.
Thanks, Shadrach. Thanks, man. And I didn't want to make it just for devs because I think that there's a lot of other roles that make up this wonderful IT industry that we work in that are not your typical dev skills. So thank you.
Correct.
Anyone else?
Oh, that was really cool, Vanessa.
Oh, you sound surprised, Evald, but thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following you on LinkedIn and stuff, and all the fluff you put out there, so much
Yeah,
nonsense.
jeez, I know. Such
And
crap,
then you come up with a couple of real gold nuggets here. Well done. I'm impressed. I might just keep following you on Twitter.
Oh, well, that would be wonderful. So thanks, Evald. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you face to face. So Evald and I actually have a lot of cocky comments between each other and Twitter. On Twitter, we've never met, but we always have good banter. It always makes me laugh. And that's actually something that's really important. Like a good sense of humor is really, it really shows a good personality and intelligence and all of those things. I'm not saying in your case, Evald, obviously, but
I'm the exception to that rule.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you are. Yeah, but that's what people look for. That's what I'm trying to say. Any other questions? Did anything come through on the chat that I missed? Actually,
No, just Devil tonight chatting.
Oh, just you and Devil. Okay, well, the naughty schoolboys. It's Stephen. It's fine that you're a Delphi developer and you're not near 70. That's great. It's an in-demand skill. So all I'm saying is that most people will looking for Delphi. The developers aren't interested in coding in Delphi. Sorry, Carol, have you got another question there?
Yes, I do.
Sorry.
I just wanted to find out, what is the job market looking like right now, in the midst of COVID? I mean, there's speculations of, doom and gloom. Is it really that way? Or is it just
Carol,
perception?
you know what? I actually was on a webinar with two colleagues this afternoon, and we were discussing this. Also, one's big in the coaching world and one's big in the employer branding world. For people with in-demand skills, I don't think it's all doom and gloom at all. I have read a lot of international, articles or blogs this morning about how there's going to be a power shift. So in South Africa, for I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, the candidates have held all of the cards. Okay, so they've been able to pick and choose where they want to work. And it's been a great position for you people as candidates. From a client's perspective, it's always been a bit of a competition. It's been for the client, okay, what am I going to offer these people? Like, sure, am I going to offer them like 2 days remote work so I can ensure that I'm getting the best talent on board? But those days are kind of gone because I think most companies are going to be remote. So South African companies need to reassess what they consider to be their perks for people who are skilled in the IT space, because the perks may not be that important. And also what I think is that there's a lot of skilled developers, and I know that there's a lot of people who are looking for international work, because I think a lot of companies are realizing that it doesn't matter where you live, you can pick up work anywhere. And I think that's a great danger to the South African market, because we're going to lose a lot of strong developers to international organizations and companies. So to answer your question in a nutshell, what I would say is that I think people are being cautious. I think we're going to start seeing more activity in the market once we hit the next level, level 2. But I think that there's a big wave coming. But if you have got tech skills, I wouldn't panic. My feeling from people that I've been speaking to who do IT recruitment in this country is that they haven't really stopped recruiting through lockdown. So I would still keep up all of your activities, use this time, grow your online brand, get your CV up to date, those kind of things, because I don't think that the tech industry is going to be one that's going to be super, super badly kind of affected. I think you're lucky in that. I mean, it's not hospitality, which is in serious trouble.
Sure, but I think you're noting an important thing in that because we're going virtual, it means that the competition is that much greater, because a South African company can source a developer from, Europe or wherever, as we become more and more virtual.
Absolutely. So they could source a cheaper developer from India, or, then you're going to have the language barriers, or Eastern Europe, but similarly, as South Africans, you could also potentially be finding employment from international companies, because most currencies are stronger than the rand. So I think it's too difficult to call. I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. But I think we're in for interesting times. I really and truly do. And I know certainly pre-lockdown, there was a lot of South Africans who were looking to make a move, either physically to move to another country, or to leave South African-based companies and to start looking for work that was potentially, they could be like sitting at home, because I mean that Joburg traffic was and Cape Town traffic was just positively awful.
Sure. Okay.
And working remote and working from home was living the dream, but I've actually found it quite funny. In the 3 months of lockdown, it's actually been so interesting to see so many people realize that it's actually not always all it's been cracked up to be, working from home, especially when you're trying to homeschool, you're trying to clean your house, you're trying to make meals. So it's been interesting. That what I'm seeing now in the market is a lot of guys or should I say tech candidates are looking for 3 days remote, 2 days in the office is pretty much what I'm seeing.
Okay.
I had to buy my own coffee machine for home.
Oh,
I don't have the baristas at work anymore. It's like it took me 3 months to do it, but eventually last week I went and got a proper coffee machine.
Fantastic! You eventually buckled and thought, right, this is it. I love it. If that's the worst thing you've had to buy, that's not too bad. As you can see, I need to buy a better light, because as the sunlight is fading outside in Joburg, I'm looking a hell of a lot darker.
You have to remember, you have your own coffee machine at home. Nobody looks at you funny anymore when you add some whiskey to that coffee.
Exactly.
I mean, no one did that at work when we did it either. I mean, one guy's desk is just full of whiskey. The biggest problem is in lockdown. They're like, hey, you can log a call, and then like because the essential staff are there, they log a call, those guys will get stuff and bring it to the security gate for you. He's like, well, I wonder if I say like bring my bottles of whiskey to the gates, if they're going to allow that or not.
Desperate times and all the rest, eh? Oh, funny. What we've had to do. I hope there's no smokers on this call, because I feel for you guys. I'm so glad I quit about 5 years ago, because I'd be such a state if I was couldn't smoke. Cool. Guys, so listen, as I say, connect with me. Feel free to ask me any questions, anything that comes to mind, maybe 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. You're welcome to just pop me a message. I won't answer at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, I might. Depends how cold it is tonight in Joburg.
It's going to be very cold.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks, guys.
As I said at the beginning of the meetup, we're looking at potentially starting a little bit later next month. It'll be the 3rd Wednesday, which is confusing because the first day of the month is a Wednesday. So you count that as the first day. But details will go up on Meetup. We're meeting now on closer to the Centurion time slots, and we're just doing some finalization there and some formalization. And
Centurion
we should,
time.
yes, we're at Centurion time. It's like 2 hours later than everyone else. But we do have some awesome potential topics that we've got to confirm. And we'll let you guys know. Thanks.
Awesome. But guys, thank you.
I think your internet went hazy.
Sorry, I was just going to say thank you so much for your time. It was good to meet everyone. And yeah, I hope to see you again soon.
Whoop whoop. Happy beer o'clock, y'all.
Woohoo! One time.
Oh,
Cheers, guys.
thanks.
Keep it real.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.